Yeah. Good. Yeah, we beat the Smithsonian, so can't be all bad.
That personal pride to beat the Smithsonian, I love it. But I mean, obviously they got this huge amount of resources behind them, and you know, that's a David and Goliath one, Goliath, but you know, it's a victory, isn't it? My goodness, well done.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah. We just got nominated for an innovation award for an app we made last year as well. So we've had a nice couple of weeks.
Brilliant, fantastic. What's the innovation award? Was that for?
It's for the gift app we made, which is like for museums where you create a gift app using a digital gift from the collection of a museum.
All right,
and share it with people. And we're just about to do a test in China with it as well, doing a little trial in Shanghai to see how it works in a totally different social context. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, well, I hope we're going to hear more about that because I know we've got some people in China joining us. Hello, everybody. If you just tuned in, great to see you. I hope you had a productive afternoon. We are very lucky to be joined by the wonderful Matt Adams from Blast Theory, and he's going to tell you all about them. I'm not going to try and summarize what they do because it's quite a tricky one to get right. So I will just hand over ways. You can post questions in the questions channel. Obviously, we won't get to them until the end, but if you have questions that occur to you along the way, feel free to post as we go, or just write them down and stick them in there later on. But for now, I will hand over to you, Matt. All yours.
Thanks so much, Fred, and hi everyone. It's great to be with you today. My name is Matt. I'm one of the 3 artists in Blast Theory. I'm going to talk to you today about a couple of projects that we've made recently. That, like all the projects we make, they are interactive. So what we do in our work is to think about how interaction works and how you make interaction meaningful. There's me with Duro Far in the center and Nick Tandovanich on the left, and the 3 of us have been collaborating together since the early 1990s, making interactive artworks together. And in 2018, we were lucky enough to be the first ever artist in residence at the World Health Organization in Geneva, and over a period of 3 months made a number of visits to the WHO to learn and to understand what the WHO does. That trip was facilitated by the Wellcome Trust, quite an amazing biomedical funding organization and support organization. And while we were in Geneva, we were embedded in...
This conference is being recorded.
This is called the SHOC Room, which stands for the Strategic Health Operations Center. And it's the room in which the WHO deals with all incoming information about infectious diseases around the world. At 9 a.m. sharp, this team of people gather and review all the intelligence that they have gathered over the previous 24 hours to understand what they might need to do in response to any infectious disease outbreak. And in order to do that, the WHO monitors 500,000 signals per month. 500,000 sources of information worldwide are brought in by their data team, sifted and reviewed. So we got this amazing ringside seat to understand how this work is done. And obviously I've thought a lot about this room over the last 4 or 5 months as they are clearly going through the process of dealing with COVID-19, and many of the people who we met in Geneva have been on the news on a regular basis talking about the WHO's work. We were invited to explore the building. This is us in the main conference room at the WHO. And we're given license to go around the building and to meet people, to interview people, spend time in the library, and to spend time in the archive with a view to making an artwork. And all we knew was that artwork would be shown at the Museum of the City of New York and at Tai Kwun in Hong Kong. While we were in the library, we came across this report by the WHO on SARS. And SARS is a coronavirus which first came into the human population in 2003. And we discovered an amazing event that prompted us to make an artwork about it. I'm aware that you probably can't read some of the text on these slides. Apologies for that if that's the case. But what you're essentially seeing here on the right-hand side is a chain of transmission. In 2003, on the night of February the 21st, a doctor from mainland China who had been treating a number of unusual cases in his region flew to Hong Kong to visit family. And he checked into the 9th floor of the Metropole Hotel in Hong Kong. He began to feel ill during the night, and he subsequently realized that he was carrying SARS. And over the course of the night that he spent in the hotel, 16 other people were infected on the 9th floor. And so we decided we would look at this particular moment of disease transmission as the source of an artwork. In the hours and days after those guests started leaving the Metropole Hotel, they flew across the world and took the disease with them to Hanoi, to Singapore, to the Philippines, to Australia, to Vancouver, and to Toronto. And in some cases, just one of those guests became the source of up to 260 other further onward infections. So this is what we might call a super spreading event, a moment at which the disease moves from a single person to 16 others and then onwards to several thousand further people. We became fascinated by the hotel itself. And we did research into the hotel. This is a photo from the Metropole Hotel. And we were able to find these floor plans here. So this is the exact plan of each room and each style of room in the Metropole Hotel. And from that, we were able to create 3D models of those rooms. And from that, then rebuild the entire 9th floor in a 3D modeling package, so that we had a scale plan of exactly which rooms were which, and from that we could then map onto this plan how the disease had spread from room to room. One of the reasons that we were so fascinated by this is that epidemiologists in the months and indeed years after the SARS outbreak spent enormous time and resources to try and understand what had happened at the Metropole Hotel, because it was such a critical moment at which the disease begins to spread. It became a source of great interest as to how did it spread from one guest to another. Why were some rooms infected and other rooms not? Here you can see a color model where we're now starting to work out how to build a 3D model in real materials from this. And this visualization shows an installation model of how we presented this work in New York for the first showing of this work. And this gives you a better picture of it. So now you're looking at a finished model. This is a milled aluminium model of the 9th floor of the Metropole Hotel. And on the right there, you can see a little listening cup that you can use. In fact, there are 2 of those, and you can pick either one up and listen. One of them is Mike Ryan, who is one of the leading experts at the WHO, who led the fight against SARS in 2003 and has been leading the fight against COVID-19 this year. And the other is a fictional story telling the story of one person from Singapore as she checks into the hotel and goes through the process of unwittingly contracting the disease and taking it home. And in a lot of the work we do, we balance something that is fictional and something that is factual together. We intermingle those as a form of provocation and as a way of drawing you into the active process of trying to work out for yourself what is going on in the situation. We're interested to try and stimulate your imagination, stimulate you emotionally. It's quite a powerful story of going through and contracting a deadly illness. In fact, that person took it home and infected both of her parents, who both died from SARS. So you can imagine the kind of emotional burden that that person carries, being the person who introduced it to Singapore and unwittingly killed two of her relatives in the process. This is a kind of aerial view of the model showing the lighting. So as you listen to either one of these stories, a series of LED lights illuminate different rooms so that you can see how the disease spread from one room to another. Okay, so that's in a way a more conventional kind of artwork. It's an installation. It's interactive in the way in which you engage with it. But what we try and do is always find the right language of interaction for each work that we're making, and to think about what's the right way to activate people in terms of the ideas that we're trying to explore and the themes that we want to bring to life in people who are participating in the work or coming to see the work. And so the second piece I'm going to talk to you about is called Spit Spreads Death, the Parade. And this was a work we made commissioned by the Mutter Museum. It's a museum of medical history in Philadelphia. And the Mutter approached us to say that they were planning an exhibition about the 1918 flu pandemic. And they wanted to bring us in at the very earliest gestation of that exhibition to think about whether we could create an artwork that would run alongside that. And we had a complete carte blanche in terms of what we might make. But the really exciting thing for us is we were going to work alongside a visual arts curator, a historical curator, and an epidemiologist in the development of this exhibit. And the epidemiologist was actually going to do original, fresh research into what happened in 1918 and 1919. And I need to go back a little bit to tell you what happened there. If you're not familiar with what happened in 1918 and 1919, it's an astonishing pandemic. Many times more lethal than COVID-19. No one knows how many people died, but it's between 50 and 100 million people. About 500 million people caught the flu in that period, and that's 1 in 3 of the world's population. It was called Spanish influenza, but had actually nothing to do with Spain, except that the Spanish media was not being censored during World War I. And so they freely reported it, where the French, German, British, and American media suppressed news because they thought it would be bad for morale during World War I. This poster is actually taken in Philadelphia, and it says there are 1,500 cases in the Navy Yard. And that's because Philadelphia then and now has a massive Navy Yard, and the disease was rapidly spread by troops and sailors moving around for the prosecution of World War I. And Philadelphia was infected by sailors arriving at the Navy Yard, and then it spread rapidly among the sailors, soldiers, and workers there. So much so, the death rate was so high that members of the public had to perform burials in the early days. You can see people here with homemade masks, just scarves wrapped around their faces in some cases. And this is probably slightly early on in the pandemic because they still have a coffin. In this photo, you can see people are now digging mass graves, and people are dying so fast that funerals are unable to be held. Material for coffins has run out, and people were buried by the hundred into mass graves. The disease was terrible almost everywhere on Earth, South Pacific Islands, the north coast, the north of Alaska, deep into South America, China, right across the globe. But Philadelphia itself was particularly badly hit. This graph might be a little bit hard to read, but it's the number of influenza deaths in American cities, and the graph that is surging to the top there is Philadelphia. And it's been a source of great interest and inquiry as to why was Philadelphia so badly hit. And as we did some more research into it, it became clear that there was a very specific reason. These badges that you see here are for the Liberty Loan drive that the American government used to fund World War I. And what they were doing was selling bonds to the public. So the public would buy a bond with a guarantee from the government that the government would repay it at some point in the future. And those bonds would help pay for the war. And there was a very strong patriotic drive to sell these things. And the badge at the very bottom there is the fourth Liberty Loan, which was happening in September 1918, just as the flu pandemic was really getting going. And the authorities in Philadelphia had decided to hold a parade, a patriotic parade, to bring people out onto the street and help raise money and sell Liberty Loan bonds. And this photo is Broad Street, the main central avenue that runs north-south through Philadelphia, and about 200,000 people came out onto the streets at exactly the moments that the pandemic was starting to spread through Philadelphia. Medical professionals advised that it be cancelled, and the city authorities decided it would go ahead. And within a few days, the death rate in Philadelphia spiked. And you saw the graph, and there's no doubt that this parade was a major accelerator for what happened in Philadelphia, which was one of the worst hit major cities in the US. So I'm going to skip on to that. So now, so we decided that what we would do would be to hold an artwork that would be a parade on exactly the same route through Broad Street on the anniversary of that parade from 1918. And we would invite the people of Philadelphia to come out and to commemorate what happened and to celebrate the work of public health workers. Public health workers prior to 3 or 4 months ago were little acknowledged and little paid attention to. It's not a very glamorous part of the medical profession, and we really wanted to highlight the work that they do in preparing for pandemics. And I also mentioned how the pandemic was very 1918 was forgotten, very much so. It's been talked about a lot, obviously, in light of what's happened in the last 3 or 4 months. But prior to that, many people hadn't heard of the 1918 pandemic or were only very faintly aware of it. And that seemed remarkable to us, that an event that would kill more than 50 million people would in some way be forgotten or fallen from memory. In this photo, this is a publicity photo to do as part of the campaign to invite Philadelphians to come out. We're all holding up our cell phones, and I'm going to talk in just a moment about why we're using our phones there. So this is a poster for the parade. So in this instance, the work really begins through a kind of communications plan. So we're using all the social media channels that we have, that the Mutter Museum have, to raise awareness and to invite people to come out and parade with us. We're working with local partners in the city. We're visiting hospitals, we're visiting universities, we're talking to student groups and community groups. We're working with community arts organizations. We worked with an amazing choir called The Crossing, who are twice Grammy-winning choir, and with composer David Lang to compose music for the parade. And we're trying to tell the story of what happened as a way of inviting people to come and walk with us. And then on the 28th of September last year, hundreds of people came out to gather with us and walk north up Broad Street to walk the route of the original parade with us. We wanted to highlight the individuals who died. When people are dying in the thousands and in the millions, it's very hard to get a handle on the personal stories. And because we were working with an epidemiologist called Nick Bonneau, Nick went back and accessed every single death certificate from everyone who died in Philadelphia in that period from flu. It was about 20,000 people, and we chose the very worst day of the pandemic, October the 12th, 1918, when in Philadelphia alone, about 800 people died. Philadelphia was a city of only about 1 million people at that time. And we then created a mobile app to allow members of the public to choose someone who died that day, and to then honor that one person. And what you're looking at here is crowds arriving on the day of the parade to pick up the death certificate of the person they have chosen. Here's an example of a death certificate. And so each death certificate really gives you a little flavor of the person and of what happened to them and how they died. Where they came from and where their parents had come from. Of course, at this point in American history, many people are immigrants from Europe, so you've often got people who were born in Europe and had then moved to America. And here's another photo from the parade itself. And this woman here in the foreground is holding up her phone because we built a mobile app that played the music that was composed by David Lang and sung by The Crossing to play out of everyone's phones in synchronicity. So the kind of choral music for the parade was being played by the participants. So, and as you see there, everyone's holding the death certificate of each individual person. It has the name on the front and the death certificate on the back. And here is just 3 screenshots from the mobile app that we built to enable people to engage. So on the left-hand screen, you can choose by the name of the person who died, by age, by the neighborhood they lived in, or by the occupation. And in the middle one there, it might be hard for you to read, but this is someone who's chosen occupation. And if I just read you some of the jobs there, you'll get a flavor of the sort of the early 20th century jobs that people did. Helmet maker, high school student, homemaker, house ward, industrial worker, instrument maker, inventor, and so on. And then on the right, you have the screen that you would see once you have chosen someone. And this person has chosen Salvatore Pasquale Contrella. And from the death certificate, we can say, in the writing underneath, it says, a homemaker who lived at 3916 North 9th Street in Hunting Park and died aged 28 years old. So each of these individuals was honored personally in the experience. And we created a small piece of choreography. I'm not able to show you the film of that we made of the parade, but in a moment I am going to show a slide with the link to it. And while the Mutter Museum itself is closed due to the virus, the film is available online for a limited period of time. It's a 10-minute film that actually opens the exhibition at the Mutter Museum, and it is available online. So please do have a look if you're interested. we created a small piece of choreography where one at a time, you were invited to hold up your death certificate and to stop walking while the hundreds of people continued flowing past you on the parade, and hold up the name of the person you were representing. And this was sung by the choir and called by my colleague Ju with a microphone. So there was this call of each name of each person who had died, who was being honoured, as we processed north the 3 or 4 miles from the Navy Yard up to City Hall, and that has sort of particular significance, not just because it's the route of the original parade, but it's also how the virus came into the city through the Navy Yard and progressed north into the heart of the city at City Hall. One of the things that was really moving about the day was people came to honour their own relatives. This lady here has made her own T-shirt to honour someone called Marie Hidell, who was a relative of hers who died and who was working as a nurse, and died on September the 28th, 1918. And here is someone taking their moment to stop and hold up the name as the parade moves past them. We built these illuminated sculptures that you see just out of shot there, left and right. So you're sort of, for a moment, inside a tunnel of light as you stand for a moment or two to honour the person who you've chosen. Here you get a slightly wider shot. This lady's actually wearing scrubs. She's a nurse herself, and she's standing to honour Regina Teresa Kavanaugh. Okay, I'm going to wind it up there. If you're curious to see the film or get a flavour of the film and the amazing music that David Lang composed, the link is there. It's at the Blast Theory website, and as I say, the project's called Spit Spreads Death. Yeah, I look forward to chatting to you a little bit more about what we're doing, but I'm going to wrap it up there. All right, thanks a lot.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Fascinating. And I'm going to give you a little mini round of applause. I think that's probably echoing through the classroom. That was absolutely riveting. And yeah, obviously very focused on those two projects. Feel like they have a particular resonance at the moment. And we are definitely looking at how the creative community responds to this situation. So it's great to have these two fantastic examples. And I would urge everybody to go and check out the film. We will put the link on the Slack channel shortly. So if you want to post any questions you have for Matt now, I think we've got a little bit more time with you, Matt, if you're around for a bit.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So I will be relaying questions. So just put them in the questions channel. But in the meantime, maybe I'll lob you one and say, how do you? Because you work in a whole bunch of different mediums when it comes to technology, how do you make decisions about what to use for which projects? It's like, because I've seen you do so many different things in so many different spaces. What's your process of reaching those kind of decisions? I'm just curious if there's something you can speak to there.
Yeah, I mean, we try to think about each project fresh from the start. We try to make no assumptions about the technology we're going to use. We try to think about the themes and the ideas in each work distinctively, and to think about what is the right register within which this takes place. And I'm a great believer that good interaction design is about a very careful attention to the context within which you're designing. So, and so then often the questions about what sort of technology we're using it just really sort of unfolds naturally from that set of considerations. So, you know, I very intentionally showed a cluster of 17 cases, which is the work that we showed in New York and Hong Kong first, because it's quite a conventional work in lots of ways. It's a model inside a glass case with a piece of audio. I can remember seeing exhibits like that in the 1970s when I was a kid. So the technology there is very it's very simple, really. Things that light up in a model as you listen to something, but that comes from this sense of how do you dramatize what happened in one floor of a hotel. And this idea of using milled aluminium, a very sort of cold and antiseptic kind of material inside a glass box, a sealed box, felt like a very engaging language. And then, of course, when you come to Spitz-Spread's Death, the parade, it needed to be mobile tech because we're doing a parade and people are on their feet, and we're hoping that people are going to join us spontaneously, and many people did. So you've got people who are rocking up even as it's happening. So then we're working in mobile. So then you're thinking, okay, how are you going to do something that's really powerful in the mobile space? How are you going to use that? So we're always trying to use the least technology possible. There's an overhead in complexity and in cost, both in terms of time and money, with every single bit of tech that you add. And so we're always trying to simplify, to clarify, to get something down to its absolute essential quality. And the reason I sort of showed those screens from the mobile app is because we're trying to catch you going about your business in Philadelphia in 2019 and try and get you to think about someone who died 101 years prior and have a relationship with that person, so much so that you'll turn up at a parade to honor them. It's quite a big ask. You're looking to do quite a big challenging thing. So we're trying to think about, well, what are the kinds of ways in which you might connect to that person? And so that's really, where we're thinking about the neighborhood. Because obviously, if someone says to you, oh yeah, someone died, in your street, during the Blitz or something, if we're in England, in an English context, that immediately has a very strong connection with you because our locality is a powerful interest to all of us. So that's why neighborhoods was an important way of allowing people to choose in Philly, because many people were fascinated to find the people who were close to them physically, who died. Other people chose because of profession and so on. So, some people were interested in people from their own heritage. So they would look for Norwegian names or Swedish names or Hungarian names and search that way. So we're looking to try and create hooks to bring people in.
Yeah, and it sounds like you rigorously kind of attacking that challenge and kind of exploring the routes and then finding the most appropriate one is part of your process. Great, we've got lots of questions coming through now. I'm just going to stick with the Spitz-Spread's Death project because Katerina wants to know, how did you promote participation for the parade? How did you reach that audience?
A lot of it through sort of sheer manual labor. So, we're using the obvious channels. We're using social. The Mutter Museum has an amazing collection of artifacts, including slices of Einstein's brain and all sorts of stuff like that. And so they have a huge social following, hundreds of thousands of followers worldwide. So we're obviously using those channels, and we're using Blast Theory's social channels. We're doing work with the press. The work was covered by the Washington Post and the New York Times, for example. We're doing local TV, so we did a piece on the Philadelphian TV station in the few days before the parade. But then we're doing loads and loads of just shoe leather stuff where we're knocking on the doors of people. We visited all the undertakers on that route to meet them in person and to talk to them, because often they had family histories of that event. It's carried down through the generations, that event for undertakers. We went and did talks at universities. We talked to all kinds of different groups. We often asked whether we could stand up at the end of sort of medical events and historical events that were happening in the city in the few weeks running up. So it's we're really doing pretty much everything we can think of to try and get the word out. And it's quite a difficult thing to explain. You've got to sort of talk about what happened 100 years ago before you can even start the conversation. So it was a real challenge and something that we were very nervous about, whether anyone would turn up.
Well, it's always the way. The shoe leather is what I hear about that. It's like kind of, it's just the hard work, and I certainly see the depth of that. Maybe that's not what's apparent, perhaps, Yeah, I know how much it takes to put these things on. All right. Zana would like to know, what would you classify your company to be/do as a title? This is a good question. I'd like to know the answer to this one.
Interactive art.
There we go.
So, we're trained in a variety of creative disciplines. My background's in theatre, but both Nick and Jude came out of a visual art practice. So we come from that sort of background, and interaction and activating people through the work that we make is the common thread that runs through all of it. So those are the sort of two things that really anchor the work that we do.
Yeah, and it's nice to have, to explore exactly what that is, because I'm sure you get asked that question a lot, and I have described you in the past, forgive me, as a theatre company, but clearly I won't be saying that anymore.
Well, and we make works of theatre. There was a time where we made quite a lot of mobile games, and we were known as games designers, and we've been sort of given awards for games design. But we haven't sort of made a proper game in maybe 5 years. So it just varies over time. We're moving around a little bit. We're always curious to learn new things, and we tend to try and put ourselves in a position where we're slightly out of our depth. We'd certainly never run a parade before, and we had to skill up in double quick time on the parade stuff. And there was a load to learn.
I bet. And that's where the fun stuff is, though, isn't it? That's where the growth is, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. What else have we got? Andrew would like to know, what is your team dynamic like? Does each person specialize in a particular process, or do you work together in a generalized way? And I'm just going to bring in Wib's question, just slightly similar. How did you manage your work with other creatives on each project? How collaborative was the process with the composer and the choir? So kind of collaborate.
Yeah. So I wrote, I think, Fred, you asked me to write a little bit of something about collaboration as part of this workshop. And I think I said, Junic and I will argue until the sun goes down. So that gives a kind of flavor, perhaps, of where collaboration kind of sits. Everything that we do is deeply collaborative, always. Not just the fact that the three of us are collaborating as artists, but we're always collaborating with others, and we're very excited by that. And in fact, we've collaborated with a team of researchers at the University of Nottingham called the Mixed Reality Lab for 22 years now. And so that's a really deep collaboration between artists and scientists, computer scientists. And that's been a really big part of the work that we've done together. And then we collaborate outwardly. Now, with the example of the choir and David Lang, a collaboration is a negotiation, and some of those collaborations can be deeper and some not. David Lang is an Oscar-nominated composer. He's an extremely busy guy. It was our good fortune that, in a way, that one of his relatives had died in 1918. And so he had a personal connection to the material. And actually, I never met David face to face once. And, the collaboration was shall we say, efficient. It would have been great for it to be deeper, and I would have loved that, but he's an insanely busy guy. And he said, yeah, I can compose you a short piece of music for this. And off he went. Then there were other organizations. We worked with Spiral Q, which is a community arts organization in Philadelphia who specialize in parades. And we worked with them, over about a year, meeting multiple times face to face and, really working deeply with them. So it's a kind of horses for courses, but we're always really fascinated to collaborate with people because it challenges us. And again, we can learn from it.
Yeah, right. That's what we're trying to do here. Deborah would like to know which project had the most influence on you. I guess it's kind of, personal inspiration there is what she's after.
I presume she means by a project by someone else.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard question to answer. But
sorry.
No, it's good. That's good. Thank you, Deborah. It's like a hard question is a good one. You know, the weird thing is when I was thinking about what creativity meant and what kind of work I wanted to make, I was fascinated by theatre, but I was also very frustrated that theatre sort of looked a bit like sort of cheap television, where people sort of sat in rows looking in one direction at something within a frame. And I was like, this seems kind of weird, because cinema and TV do that quite a lot better. Why can't theatre be something that's as live and as vital as a gig or a club night? You know, why can't it have that degree of energy and passion and excitement and that sense of you had to be there, and that sense of like, if you weren't on that parade on that day, no one will ever be able to give you a flavour of really what it was like. You missed it. You weren't there. And it's not that we're going to try and design FOMO into all the things that we do, but to try and create that sense of being live and present. And part of that comes from being on protests when I was an angry young man, and being in situations where something is really a bit out of control. And also coming through a period of club culture in the UK, where clubs were quite a sort of underground thing. Before clubs became a big commercial proposition, clubs were in warehouses and in old film studios and in church halls and all sorts of odd places. And, you know, some of those experiences felt like something that you wanted to tell people about, like you've crossed into a zone, an area where it's a little bit illicit, it's a little bit up for negotiation, there's something a little bit on the edge of control here. Those things are super exciting. So I would say those are sort of some of the reference points that have really fueled me personally. And I think, you know, what's interesting is that for Ju and for Nick, it would be something really different. You know, they would have very different takes on where it comes from.
Yeah, great. And I know exactly what you're talking about there. I'm similarly inspired. What else we got? You got thanks from Manoj for the wonderful talk. How do you test out your assumptions when you're designing these interactive experiences?
It's kind of basic stuff. It's test early and test often, and you know, get something up onto its feet as early as you possibly can. So don't sit around talking about something endlessly. Get to the point where you're going to try something out as quickly as you can. So we're obviously based here in the UK. We're in Brighton, on the south coast of the UK. We're making a piece of work in Philadelphia, and we're going backwards and forwards a little bit. But by and large, we're based here, making our work here. 6 months before the parade happened, we hired a bunch of film lights and a bunch of stands, and we went to a nearby road here in the harbour in Brighton and set up a sort of lighting rig with a couple of cameras to test how light would bounce around, how we might illuminate this thing. And it looks really crude, and it was, but we came back with some information of like, oh, that looks really strong. That looks less good than I was expecting. So even in terms of the lighting, we're trying those things. You know, we're building very early on a very simple mobile app to test the synchronized music. You know, and we've got 20 phones here in our studio. We're playing 20, you know, the one track out of 20 phones, and just walking around the room going, does it sound interesting? What's it like as you move around? So there's no magic to it, but the one thing that we learn occasionally, you get burnt and you learn all over again, is, oh God, why did we sit around for ages dreaming this thing, convinced it was going to work? Why didn't we just test something really early on? And then we would have seen that we were mistaken and that was a bad idea. And so sometimes, you know, we find that we have to learn again that with things that are interactive, you're creating something that is, you know, Brian Eno, the musician and producer, describes interactive as unfinished. And that's a really good way to think about it, because the public come and complete the work. You're creating something that is open to the public. And so they are going to come and meet you. There's some kind of dialogue you're making with the public. You're not making a finished interactive thing and then putting it out there. And so, you know, where the public meet you and how, that's something that you need to always be aware of and thinking about.
Great, that's a fantastic answer, and I'm writing notes for myself, not just for the workshop, so thank you for that, Matt. We've had 45 minutes of your time. I think we will wrap it up there. But if you've got a few minutes to stick around and just pop into the Slack channel, I'm sure people would love to just lob some curveballs at you directly. I want to stress that Blaster have done so many projects over the years. How long have you been going now?
29 years.
Okay, sorry, I shouldn't have asked, but there's a big party coming, clearly. Yeah, you know, you've seen a tiny little sample of what they do today. Yeah, I urge you to go and check out their other projects. Okay, great. All right, we're going to leave it there, but thank you so much, Matt. Really very much appreciated.
Thanks a lot. It's great to be here.
And Matt is coming back later on in the workshop with his colleague Ju, and we can't get everybody to create everybody, but they'll be talking to you about your projects individually in individual groups. So thanks again for that, Matt. Really very much appreciated. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thanks everyone.
Right. See you later. Okay. I am hearing. Let's have a 5-minute break right now, and we will come back in 5 minutes. Back in here, just grab a glass of water if you've got some questions for Matt, lob them on the channel, and I will wrap up the day at 12:30. And yes, I thought it was really stimulating talk. That was useful. We can discuss that later. Alrighty, see you back here in 5 minutes. Take a quick break. And yeah, it's the end of day 2. Yes. Having a good day, Abby. Hey, Abby. My brain is fried. All our brains are fried. What a great talk that was. That was amazing. I mean, talk about intense as well. It was like,
yeah, man. I think it's really interesting. I mean, it must be interesting to be a speaker right now, because I think it could be very easy to just do a kind of regular run-of-the-mill portfolio talk and completely gloss over anything that's happening right now. Just be like, yeah, we make cool posters, right? So I think that was, really interesting to really tackle it head on. But yeah, Matt's great.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic work. Great. Okay, well, I hope that was useful for all of you out there in Modual land, and it kind of gave you some ideas. I think the point of that was just to show there's a whole range of ways you can respond. And again, you don't have to do anything similar to what you've just seen, obviously. We all have very different responses, but it's an alternative to XR. It's much more of a fine art approach, I would argue. Like words in Matt's mouth, so I think I'll just let his presentation speak for itself, but hopefully it was a useful thing. I certainly got a lot out of it. I was taking notes myself. That whole thing about the interactive is unfinished, I thought was gold. Definitely going to have that. And test early, test often. Test early, test often is now my new mantra. Brilliant. Okay, well, we're nearly at the end of the day. It's been a big day. Again, thank you so much for staying on board and kind of being part of this experiment and exploration. This morning, I know, was a little bit bumpy in places, but it felt like we were really getting there. I hear rumours of huge numbers of ideas in various groups. Digital Post-it now is running out. My God, what's that about? Crikey. That really is a lot. So, logistically, what you need to know is this. There is one last brainstorming session tomorrow morning. That's the last time for brainstorming. So if you have any ideas tonight, write them down and bring them to your team tomorrow. And let's just be super clear about this now. We've been dreaming big. We've been going crazy. We've been going out there. Some of these projects, a few of these projects, in fact, these ideas, you're going to take them forward and develop them properly into a more fully fledged project. And we'll talk about how you do that tomorrow and Thursday. But if you don't have an idea on the table for all your team members to look at, it is not going to happen. And you might want to start thinking about coming down the slope towards the reality of what's possible. I'm loving the ambition and the trips to Mars and all of that. I think it's great. I think it is useful to build on, to come up with some really innovative and exciting ideas. But I am now going to say, but don't forget, out of all these ideas, you will be choosing stuff that's actually going to get made by you collaboratively together in teams. So do make sure you've got some of those ideas on the wall as well. Any thoughts on that, Abby?
Yeah, I think it's also a good time to mention that if it's not on the board, then it will not be happening at all. So this is your time to put those kind of ideas down. If it's by the end of the brainstorming, if an idea doesn't exist on that board, then it won't be in this workshop at all. And also, if it's not on a sticky note, it needs to be on a sticky note. That's a technical Moreau thing. I think pretty much all of you have found it and done well. But if you've been using like comments and this and that, time to chuck it on a sticky note, or else it will disappear because there are too many to figure out which ones are what at this point. I feel like I don't want to. I think we're over 1,000 at least.
Oh my
ideas. Yeah. So.
Wow. Well, okay. There's a lot of competition for those prizes. Shall I talk about the prizes? Should we reveal what the prizes are?
No.
No. Okay. We'll wait until tomorrow morning. Rest assured, it's not a big deal. It's nothing fancy. There is the glory of winning, but these prizes have to be digital, so there's not going to be. Who knows? Maybe it's a thing. But it's nothing huge. Don't knock yourself out trying to come up with hundreds and hundreds of ideas if you haven't already in order to win the prize. But at the same time, it'll be fun. And we'll hear some out there ideas tomorrow as well about those 2 prizes. Okay, so are there any questions about anything at all before we close with the usual feedback and buddy time? Are there any questions for me or Abby? I know that we are still, I think that Matt is coming into the Restless channel and maybe having a chat with you guys there directly. But yeah, are you unclear about anything at all? Anything you want to ask us? We are currently monitoring the questions channel, so if there's anything about the workshop you want to ask, now is the time to do so. Otherwise, I'll shortly send you off with a request to give us some feedback and to then talk to your buddy. And we all know how the buddy list goes. Is there a new buddy list now? I think there probably is a slightly revised one. Yeah,
it will be reposted in your channel, so look out for a new buddy list. It may be slightly different.
Right, okay. There's been some in and outs, and indeed, I see it immediately appearing as if like, oh, excellent. And I'm glad, Lakshmi, that you liked the talk. I thought it was a great talk as well. I agree with you. Challenging, but very inspiring, I thought. I mean, and, you know, great art often is provoking. And yeah, I totally hear what you were saying, Ash, about, yeah, how it was perhaps, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying there, and apologies if we were not more clear about that. Yes, one of these things that's emerging. So yeah, we have a question. Is there a way to get the on sticky notes in a list? Oh, I'm not sure that there is, if I'm being honest. Abby, you would know more about that than me, but
is that to do with making them like ordered nicely in a list? Because you can do that with arranging, but I'll look into whether you can kind of export it as a document, like a Word document or something for you.
Yeah, we'll check that out. Thanks for posting that, Shivani. I'm sure if you're asking, other people will know. We used to do it, reverse spoiler alert. We used to do it as a list, but it's much better as post-its, we think. It feels much more alive to have them on the wall. Also, we're going to be moving them around a bit at some point tomorrow, so you've got to be flexible. So is there a deadline to put up the rest of our ideas, Lena is asking, that we might come up with to put into Miro? We're gonna have a deadline tomorrow morning. It'll be, you know, we've got the first session of brainstorming. So you've got at least an hour tomorrow morning to put up some more stuff onto the Miro board. And again, remember, you have to describe these ideas to the rest of your team, because if you stick up an idea and only you know, no one else is going to be understanding it, and therefore it doesn't have a chance of then progressing onwards. So there's a reason why we get you to share these ideas in your group with each other. So, but yeah, you've got another session of brainstorming just like today, tomorrow morning. So you have tonight to think of some good stuff if you want to. Thanks, Lena, for the question. Coolio. Anything else before we break? Again, we're running early. 22, that's pretty good. I think, hang on. Is each group going to focus on a few specific issues? Each group are free to address various issues, asks Zin. All will be revealed. Again, I will restate, this is not your final group. This is a client group. You're coming up with lots of ideas. It's not about your group delivering these ideas. So you are welcome to put whatever you want on the board. Hopefully, having met each other, you get a sense of some commonality. If things come up that are specific within your group, that's great, but you are basically free to do what you like at this stage and put whatever you want on the board. So I hope that answers your question, Sim. Right, I think we might be done. So once again, I'm going to stress, please give us some feedback before you leave. Just let us know how it's going. Always constructive criticism, always open to pointers as to how we could do this better. Also very keen to know how you're doing and where you're at in this module. I was going to call it a marathon. It's not quite a marathon, is it? It's certainly a roller coaster. So yeah, let us know where you're at. If you just want to leave an emoji before you go, that's absolutely fine in the feedback channel. And then hook up with give your buddy a call in Slack. Yes, call your buddy in Slack and have that check out with your buddy. Just 5 minutes saying, oh, where am I at? I'm a bit fried. Oh, I'm pretty good. I liked it. I didn't like it. Whatever. Just hear from each other. That would be great. And we will see you tomorrow. Any else words from you, Abby?
Just well done. Like if you fancy feeling slightly good about yourselves, check out that list of ideas and just think about the fact that that has all come out of all of your brains together today, literally just today. And that is, you know, the possibilities are endless with this. And yeah, I'm really pleased. I mean, we've seen different amounts of ideas come through this stage on many different forms of this workshop. I honestly don't think I've seen as many ideas as I have right now. So yeah, it's incredible to watch, and it's quite beautiful as well to watch them all happen. So yeah, thank you for working so hard today, and I hope you have a great evening or morning or lunchtime, wherever you are.
Brilliant, well said. All right, folks, you need anything, we're here. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. Well done today, great stuff.
Bye.